Hello everybody and welcome on in here to our user group webinar. My name is Jim and I'm coming to you live on a sunny and lovely day here in Columbus, Ohio. We're going to be talking about, in the accounting module, we'll be discussing different reporting options that you have available to you there in accounting. We'll be going for about the next 20 minutes or so, but before we get started, a word about your GoToWebinar control panel that you have on your screen there. There's going to be a red button, usually in the upper left-hand corner of that control panel, that clicking on it will either minimize or maximize that control panel. Minimizing it is going to give you a little more room on your display to see what we're talking about here in our session here today. Maximizing it gives you access to the different features there in that control panel, including the questions section. I'm here all by my lonesome here today, so if you have any questions, feel free to type those in. I may or may not be able to get to them before the end of the presentation here today, but because of that, at the end of my presentation here today, I will leave the room open for a little bit to answer any questions that you might have. Please keep them specific to the topic at hand, which is the reporting options in the accounting module. But that being said, one other thing. If you have our regional training manuals, which are available for sale from us here, the topic we're going to be covering is in the Accounting 201 book, and it's pages 13 through 21. So that's what I'm going by for the material in our presentation here today. Alrighty, folks, let's go ahead and open up our accounting module. So there are, here in accounting, if you go to your reports/export tab here along the top, there are a number of different reports that we have available here. Many of these buttons are separate menus that include multiple reports that you have access to here. So for example, here on the financial menu, we've got 3 reports here. We've got 6 reports here on the transaction menu and 5 here on the worksheets menu. So there's a large number of reports. Each of them has a number of tabs and options available to them. There is a number of customization options that you have to each of these. So that's basically the topic that we're going to cover here today. I'm going to use as an example the 2 reports I'm going to use as my examples here. I'm going to use the Treasurer's Report, which is an income and expense centric report. You print this out when you're dealing with your budgets for each of your funds in the accounting module. I'm also going to show some of the options for the fund activity report, which is more of a summary type of a report for each of your different funds that you have. And then the other one we're going to look at is the transaction journal, which specifically shows information about each of your individual transactions. It's a log report type of a report here. As we're looking at these, let's switch over here to our Treasurer's Report. You'll see there's a series of tabs that you've got along the top of each of these reports. So we're going to kind of go in order and look at some of the common options that you have available on these. We're going to start on the Options tab. Almost all of these reports, when you're looking at them here on the Options tab, you're going to have an accounting year section. So if I click on the down arrow, some of you will have fewer years listed in here, and some of you may have this many or even possibly more. You're going to see a listing of all of the years that you have history here in the accounting module. So there is no need to go and roll your year back to a previous year in order to see reports from that year. You can simply select whatever year you want to report on here, and your report will generate for that. There are 2 columns on here, the beginning balance finalized, which you should see checked for each of them. It just means if you see that beginning balance finalized, that your books are going to be in balance. All of your assets are going to equal your liabilities and your fund balance as per the way fund accounting operates. You'll see a column for closed on here. You can close a year in accounting, which basically means that you don't have the ability to go back and make any changes to them any longer. So if you see a check mark in closed here, you can still report on them, but you don't have the ability to go back and make changes to them any longer. Okay. There's going to be a number of other possibilities that you can see for these. Options like whether or not you're going to include accounts with a zero balance. Here in the treasurer's report, because the treasurer's report is sort of a budget-centric style of a report, you can have it display for any of your over budget items, whether you're over budget for incomes or expenses. It'll place an asterisk next to the name of that report. We've got a checkbox here for truncating cents. Basically, that just means it's going to drop the cents off of it. It doesn't round up or down. It simply doesn't display the cents for each of the accounts when you are using it listed as that. If we come back over here to our transaction journal, there's a series of options here. It's the filter tab here, it's called, but it's basically the options on this one. Such as whether you want to show reversed transactions on here is an option that you have. You've got a whole bunch of different abilities to display particular kinds of transaction types on this report. And you will see different options on here. Many of them are self-explanatory, whether you're going to show subtotals on that, etc. This suppress repeating transaction data is something that you'll see if a particular transaction has multiple lines to it, you know, to make your incomes, or pardon me, your credits and your debits equal each other. If there's repeating transaction data, if you're going to see the same thing more than once, it's not going to display it more than once, basically, with that one. Okay. If I flip over to our fund activity report, you see some various options on there as well. Okay. Alrighty. So some of the other tabs that you're going to have access to when you're printing on these, for example, our treasurer's report here has a custom account groups tab on here. Custom account groups are the ability to filter what accounts are going to appear specifically for reporting purposes, is what these are for. Sometimes many of the types of reports, for example, on the treasurer's report here, you can limit it to a particular fund. And that does limit which accounts appear on this report. But sometimes you want more specific control over them. And that's what these custom account groups are for. There's a little Add Custom Account Group button right down here at the bottom of your screen. I'm going to click on here to show you what those look like. Here's our Custom Account Groups window. Over here on the right side underneath where it says Account Groups, I can click on my down arrow and I can display account groups that I've already created here. So if I click on my let's do mission group. No. Let's do trustee accounts. So you see here we've got a series of income and expense accounts to do with our rental properties here, repairs and maintenance. This is all properties type expense accounts on here. You can create new ones by clicking on this green plus button at the top next to where it says the name of the custom account group you're looking at. If I close out of here, I select my trustee accounts under custom account groups and I click print. Now our treasurer's report is only going to display the accounts from that specific custom account grouping. So there's just those those properties type expense accounts that we see on here. Okay, so custom account groups basically is a way that you can more specifically control what accounts are going to appear on a specific report. Okay. Now, practically every report, let me think about this. I think all the reports here in accounting are going to have a tab along the top that says columns. So now this is kind of the columns that appear when you select the columns tab differs depending on which of the reports you're looking at. So because, again, we're looking at our treasurer's report right here, this is a budgeting style report. So all of the accounts that you're going to see here are going to have to do with actual income or expense versus budgeted income or expense, and then different ways of comparing them. So it gives you the ability to kind of customize the output that you want to see on here. So if we're looking on these screens, they're all going to be formatted in a similar way. There's going to be an available columns listed here on the left side that shows you all of the different types of columns that are available for these reports. You're going to have a visible column side over here that are showing you which columns are actually appearing on your report. There's a couple of buttons in the middle here. There's a little button pointing to the right, which is for taking available columns and making them appear on your report. And then there's another one over here, an arrow button pointing to the left, which is removing columns from your report. So here's our default. Well, I don't know about its default, but this is the way we've got ours defaulted for our treasurer's report. If I click print, it takes us to our preview for our treasurer's report here. So we've got the period activity in here. And we'll see at the top that the period is May of 2017. It's going to display the budget for that month so that they can compare. It'll show our entire year-to-date balance, and it can compare from the previous year-to-date. The budget year-to-date as of the end of May, and an annual budget there. Great. But you can kind of get a little more control of this. I'll show you an example of a treasurer's report that I like to see here. I'm going to leave my account name on here. I'm going to get rid of our period activity. I'm going to get rid of just the activity of May, and I want to see my year-to-date balance. The other thing you can do here is there's also a couple of arrow buttons over here on the far right side that allows you to change the order. So there's an up arrow and a down arrow here that lets you change the order that these accounts appear in. So I'm going to take my year-to-date balance and I'm going to put it right here. I'm getting rid of monthly budget. I'm getting rid of my previous year. I'm going to get rid of budget year-to-date. So I'm going to show my annual budget. So it'll show my year-to-date balance, then my annual budget next to it, and then I'm going to show how much of my budget is remaining, my annual budget remaining. So this is just an example of one of the ways you can format this one specific report. So here's what we've got for rental gas for year-to-date. Let me get my highlighter here. There's our annual budget. This is by the end of the year budget for that specific expense account. And then there's our annual budget remaining right there. So it's a real simple, easy to get at report. So there's all these different combinations that you can control using the columns tab on there. The other thing you can do on that tab, you'll notice there is a column over here that says width that allows you to control how wide each of these columns is. So if you're running out of real estate on your report, you can try to tighten some of these up to give yourself a little bit more room. So if you've got a whole ton of stuff on here, you can use that. I'll show you an example. Let me go back to the print again. So notice here the width of the columns that we're looking at on here. And I'm going to use the account name column. So there's our account name. And our year-to-date balance starts right there. So you'll notice we've actually got a little bit of extra room here. right? So it doesn't have to be that wide. We don't need to use that much room on our report. So it's very easy to tighten that report up. I can come over here. There's my account name column. The width, notice the little asterisk here. It's the approximate number of characters. So it's not an exact measurement because that changes based on what font you're using and things along those lines. But I'm going to tighten that up a little bit. I'm going to make it about 14 on there. So when I print again, you'll see that that column is going to tighten itself up quite a bit. So there's a little more room. Actually, I can probably tighten that up even more on there. So, but that's what the width column does there. It allows you to control. So you've got the ability to change the order that they appear with these arrow buttons over here. You've got the ability to control what appears and then kind of the width of those columns. Yeah, something I did forget to mention earlier, thank you for the question, was all of the settings for each of these reports is saved when you set them up. So every time you make changes here, this becomes your new default. So the next time you come into this report, it'll remember the last way that you generated it in terms of columns and widths and all of those settings. But those are saved per user in Church Windows. So if you have different usernames and passwords for different people who access Church Windows, everybody's going to have their own specific individual way that they appear. So everybody will have their own individual defaults. Okay. If I come over here to our fund activity report, we have a tab here that says funds. This one is going to be, you're not going to see it very commonly, but the fund activity report kind of shows for each fund for a period of time where the balance showed up, your total incomes, your total expenses, and where you end a particular period. So for this specific report, you can come to the Funds tab and you can kind of control in the same way that you can control columns with available accounts on the left and the selected accounts on the right, what is going to appear on here. I'm going to get rid of everything except our general operating fund and our mission fund along with our memorial fund. So when we print this here, it'll only show those funds. There's our general operating fund here. All of those accounts will be listed underneath. As I scroll down, we're going to see our, I'm going to scroll right by it, I know I am. Yeah, there's our mission fund here. So it's going to show each of those individual funds based on what you select on there. So it's just showing us those 3 funds on this one. Okay. Each of your accounts, each of your reports rather, is also going to have a fonts tab. There's 3 separate sections of each report where you can kind of adjust the way the fonts are going to work. There's the page header, the column header, and the body text. Let's do this as a consolidated view. Treasurer's report's a better example here. That's a better one to use. So page header, column header, and body text. Sorry, I'm flipping around so much. I just kind of changed my mind as to which one was the better one to show. So the report header is all of this stuff up here at the top of your report up here, including this. Your column headers are these right here, and then your body text is everything else down here. So you can change the fonts for each of those individually. If I change my body text, I can change that to Courier if I wanted to, for example. CO. Oops. Change that to Courier. Make it a little bigger, click OK. And you'll see it's just the body text that I adjusted there. Okay. Just a couple of more things I want to point out before we're done with our presentation here today. Down in the lower right-hand corner of each of your reports here, you've got 2 different buttons. There's an export button and a print button. The print button is for sending this information to a physical device that's going to spit out a piece of paper for you, a actual print out. The export button is for taking this same information and formatting it to a file that you can save or even email right here out of Church Window. So if I click on export, it's going to take us to this export window right here. There's an export document option and a send via email option right here. When I hover my mouse over export document, notice there's this big button and also there's this tiny little sliver of a button next to it. If I click on that little down arrow, you'll see all of the different formats that you have available to export this information into, whether it's an Excel file, different Excel formats, text files, bitmap image files, etc. There's several different options on here. I'm going to go ahead and select PDF file. Each of these are going to give you these different option windows. This is all just file options. And you can usually safely just leave all this stuff defaulted on here. You don't generally have to mess with any of these options when you get these windows. But when you click OK, it's going to ask you to save that document. You can change the name of your document down here at the bottom. When I click our Save button here, it's going to ask you if you want to open it. It's going to show us that thing, and it's going to open up in Adobe Acrobat. So we're looking at a PDF document right now. So that one is one that you can use in any number of ways, including if you could also use this send via email option, which basically does the same thing. But after you've saved the file, it'll then access your local default email program. If you have Outlook set up on your computer, it'll include it as an attachment on that email. I don't have an email program set up on this computer, so I can't show you on here. Just a couple of more options on here. When you do click your print button, it takes you to what's called a print preview window. Up at the top of this window, there is a number of options right up here at the top. This button right here with the printer and the question mark is to actually print the report. Takes you to this print window where you can select any of your available printers on here. Gives you different options that you can use, and clicking print will actually send this to your printer. You know, different page setup options, whether you want to set it is what the little yellow wrench icon is. You can set it to a landscape or a portrait on here. Change the size of your paper here, and it'll reformat for you in that way. Also, we have an export as well as an email option on here as well. This little blue I button will give you information about the report, like sort of specifically what time period you ran it for, how many, if this were a transaction type report, it would show you how many transactions are specifically on your report. And then the last thing I want to show you is this little watermark option right here, which is this button at the top with the little piece of paper with the lines on it. This allows you to set up a watermark that will appear in the background of your report. You can set up a text watermark. So you can change sort of how it appears on the background. You can set the various transparencies on here with this slider bar right here. And the size of it can be, the font can be changed as well. When you click OK, it's going to set up your watermark on your report on there. You can also set up a picture background as a watermark as well. This allows you to browse to any images that you might want to include as a watermark as well. All right, cool. So that is everything I got for you guys here today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're all set to get on with your day, feel free to go ahead and click on the X in the upper right-hand corner of your GoToWebinar control panel. That'll exit you out of the room and get you on your way here today. I'm also going to leave the room open for a little bit for if anybody has any specific questions. I'm going to hit some questions that I missed through my presentation as well. But outside of that, everybody who's out of here, thanks for joining me. Okay, So somebody came in with a question about when you do export your data and you select the Excel, any of these Excel formats, what this specific export does is it tries to recreate the same format of the report as it appears when you click print. So doing an Excel export like this is not going to format it the way most folks want to see it. In other words, oops. Oh, come on. Move this over here. This account number is not like a column header. Notice it tries to format it in the same way. It's got your subtotals listed here. It doesn't format it in the same way. Certain reports, for example, the treasurer's report, you can't export it in the way that you really want to on here. The reports that can export in that way will have an export to file button. Let me see if I can find one of those.